Hey friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to Ask WrestleJuice. You guys left a bunch of great questions and a reminder we do this every single week, usually here at WrestleJuice. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, the little notify bell. And while you're at it, if you like the episode, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Let's go ahead and dive into your questions. Marquez says, should WWE have Cody lose the title soon to make the title scene more unpredictable going forward, even if he ends up winning it back quickly? I don't know about soon necessarily, but I do like what they're doing with this AJ Styles thing this past Friday on SmackDown. Of course, AJ Styles pulled a Mark Henry, came out in a pastel suit, alluded to the idea that he's retiring, and then he asked for Cody Rhodes to come out, and then he just beat him up. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I kind of feel like SummerSlam wouldn't be a terrible time for Cody to lose that title. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's probably not going to lose that title until The Rock, the final boss, throw your L's up, comes back and beats Cody for it, probably at WrestleMania, has a short run himself. Maybe Roman wins it from him. Maybe Cody wins it back from him. I don't know. But I could see that being the case. That being said, I do think it'd be so much more interesting for a guy like AJ Styles or even a Randy Orton to beat Cody Rhodes from it. The AJ Styles thing was sort of a big angle, right? And so I wouldn't be opposed to that because, yeah, I would like them to mix it up a little bit. What they always say is true, man. The money's in the chase. And Cody may be hot off like, oh my God, I just lost this title thanks to AJ cheating with the help of the Good Brothers at SummerSlam, is thinking, I finished my story. I went through all that, and now you guys just sort of steal it away from me, and then he's back on the chase, and there's still plenty of time. That way, it's not like, oh, we're just waiting around for somebody to finally beat Cody Rhodes. and makes things more dynamic. It makes the crowd want to see Cody win again, and that could happen. Maybe at Survivor Series, maybe even before Survivor Series. Maybe like Marquez here says, it could be a short run, but I don't think it'd be a bad idea. What WWE really needs to establish is the possibility that these guys can beat Cody. And until we see that happen, I don't think anybody's going to really believe it. I remember at Clash of the Castle last year when I bought into the idea that Drew McIntyre, 2 years ago, last year, whenever it was, when Drew McIntyre, it was the last one, when Drew McIntyre was going up against Roman Reigns, I was sitting there thinking, this is a possibility. And then once Roman won that thanks to Solo Sikoa, at that point I was just like, okay, it's going to be a WrestleMania. It's going to be like a big deal. It'll probably be Cody Rhodes. And that's what ended up happening. But everything from that Clash of the Castle all the way to WrestleMania, there was zero, and I mean like zero doubt in my mind, like Sami Zayn in Elimination Chamber. I never for 1 second thought Sami Zayn had any chance at winning that. It was always going to be Roman Reigns is going to win until he doesn't. So that being said, yeah, I think it'd be awesome for Cody Rhodes to lose at some point before like the final boss comes back to give us that feeling that, hey, anything can happen. And on top of that, I really like AJ Styles. I think he'd look killer with that title. Braden Loader says, why is it seemingly since Kenny Omega, AEW hasn't presented their world champion as the top guy / act in the company? I honestly kind of think it boils down to like Tony Khan doesn't quite know how to book babyface champions all that compellingly. They usually have like a decent story that's set up, and then afterwards they're just sort of like, I don't know, what do we do? I hope that things are going to be different with Swerve. I know he's going to be facing Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door. I think it'd be a terrible idea for Will. The most boring and predictable thing in the world would be for Will Ospreay to win that title off of Swerve. So a lot's going to depend on that. I really hope Ospreay loses that first one. It's inevitable that he's going to win the world title at some point. I just don't think it should be at Forbidden Door. That being said, I mean, being unable to book a strong babyface champion, I mean, that sort of just goes through the annals of pro wrestling. And I think there are some very distinct reasons for that. In fact, I've considered doing a whole video essay on that topic because I think it's an interesting one. But I think it all boils down to, okay, what do you do next? Vince McMahon had the same problem for a lot of his babyface champions. It's just sort of like, what do you do next? Once somebody has finished their story, what is there left to do? And on top of that, Tony Khan will often find sort of, as people say, like a bright, shiny new toy, or a golden boy or whatever to focus on. In this case, it's Will Ospreay. In the case of Hangman Adam Page, it was basically the entire 2021 class there. CM Punk. It was CM Punk. That's who it was. It was the real world's champion. Anyways, so yeah, I don't think it's a Tony Khan thing. I think it's like booking babyface champions is difficult for a variety of reasons. It would be nice to see him put a little bit more effort into it, and hell, maybe Swerve will be that case. Isaiah TV says, do you think we'll ever see Daniel Bryan in a WWE ring again? If so, who would you want to see him wrestle? I think it's a distinct possibility. If WWE, if Triple H is okay doing sort of like one-off programs with him, I think that they would totally, absolutely 100%. If he was up right now and he was like, hey, I want to come back for like a single match, they would do it. They would 1,000% do it. It all depends on what he wants to do. If there's something really interesting like Gunther in WWE that he finds himself interested in doing once his contract with AEW is up, if he doesn't re-sign on some sort of like, part-time wrestler, part-time consultant type contract, which I think is a distinct possibility. If he doesn't do that, if everything he does after his current contract is like sort of on an appearance basis, then I could definitely see him doing a WWE stint, just not a very long one, like a WrestleMania match against, again, an opponent that he would be really interested in facing. John O. Davey says, hey, Steve, are there any entrance themes that you initially hated but then grew to love? I hate to admit it, but that DIY theme is starting to get a bit catchy in a bad way, lol. I'm really kind of ashamed to admit this, but I really like the DIY theme now. I don't like myself for it, but I really do like it. Can we just get on to the next question, please? We are. Cinema Love says, who would you consider to be the most beloved heel of all time? It's probably Roddy Piper. Al does a good, or Aldo is a good. I don't know. Would Cody still have made it to the top without Hell in a Cell 2022? Seemed like not a lot of people were taking him seriously back then, but wrestling through it, etc., etc. Yeah, I think he would have been fine. I think he was probably always going to be that guy, but that thing really... So I'll put it this way. I kind of feel like Cody's Hell in a Cell moment was Austin's 316 moment. I firmly believe that Austin 316 was not a necessity for Stone Cold Steve Austin to get where he got. I think that was sort of just, okay, hey, everybody, pay attention. We got a new t-shirt. Everybody's going to be wearing the t-shirt. But I think it was just sort of a symbol of like, okay, he would have cut a promo regardless. He would have cut whatever cool promo in the moment he would have done that regardless. He would have been a big deal regardless. I think Cody would have been a really big deal regardless. I just think Hell in a Cell really like sort of amped that up, like really made it an extra thing. But I think he always would have been a big deal. I think Vince saw him and was like, dude, this is the perfect story. And Triple H understood his is the perfect story. If the rumors are correct, even Roman Reigns was like, no, this guy's got to get it done at WrestleMania. It shouldn't be Rock. So yeah, I kind of feel like Cody Rhodes was always going to be the guy. It's just that Hell in a Cell. The Hell in a Cell moment probably kept people from souring on Cody for a longer period of time because they haven't yet. They still really, really love him. And I don't think that's going to go anytime soon. And I think a large part of that is he did that. That looked hard. That was not an easy, that was an impressive thing that he did at Hell in a Cell. And I think people keep that in their minds. I think people, always remember that. I'm actually kind of surprised that WWE hasn't gone back to the well of whenever they bring up, like come up with a new Cody Rhodes package, like in the lead to WrestleMania. I don't remember them referencing that all that often. That was a great visual, him taking off that jacket. Everybody just gasped at it. And it was really awesome. Sort of like microphone cables with the... Diarn Omer says, can AEW go too far with protecting all their big recent signings? Remains to be seen. I don't think we're in the territory now where like it even would make sense for Ospreay. It would actually kind of make sense for Ospreay to lose to Swerve because he's got a very wrestling specific story. He won't do the Tiger Driver 91. That's a very specific wrestling based story that could lead to a loss that would make all the sense in the world. He does not need to be protected. And I kind of feel like that's gotta be the story coming out of Forbidden Door. If this is Will Ospreay wins, the crowd will be fine with it because they all love Will Ospreay. But like, I don't know, it'll be the boring route. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they could go too far if it just becomes boring. You know what I mean? But eventually people have to lose. I think that they're going to wait for Kenny to come back, for Okada to lose. We'll check out the video where I talk about dethroning AEW champions. Atticus8659 says, if The Undertaker was still in his physical peak and had the streak, what modern day wrestler would you like to see challenge him at WrestleMania? I don't know, like Drew McIntyre. You know what they should do is you have Drew McIntyre versus The Undertaker, but Drew is like a big troll now. And so he'll dig into The Undertaker's past and find like the worst thing he ever did. And obviously it was WrestleMania 9 against the big naked guy. And then Drew McIntyre would wear the naked guy outfit to the next WrestleMania with his match against The Undertaker. And then bang, Claymore from the naked guy. And then he wins. Diabetic Man says, seeing as the discussion comes up after most AEW pay-per-views, what side do you fall on with AEW's pay-per-view length debate? Are they too long, or does the length give you your money's worth? So I kind of addressed this, I think, in the Hot Takes episode of the Double or Nothing AEW thing here at WrestleJuice. And I've talked about it extensively over at Going in Raw, but I'll reiterate it here. I do not for a second think that the length of the pay-per-view necessarily matters. It's what you do with it. Sorry, that sounded like too much of a euphemism. The pay-per-view, it doesn't matter the length of it, the length of time, okay? The last couple AEW pay-per-views have been like 4 hours long, minus the pre-show, and that's what you're paying for, 4 hours, right? They jam-pack it with stuff, and either the stuff is really good or the stuff isn't really good. This time around with Double or Nothing, I thought there was a block of matches. It was the Mox Takeshita match. I really wasn't into that because I thought it was 17 minutes of sort of the same thing. The Jericho Hook Shibata match, I thought it was sort of like whatever, 20 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes of the same thing that we got with Jericho Hook. I thought there was like Orange Cassidy versus Trent. We'd seen that match before. And then Edge versus Malachi Black. We'd kind of seen that match before with Edge versus Finn Balor, the Demon, at WrestleMania a couple years ago. So like you had this whole block of matches where I was like, man, this stuff's either redundant or doesn't really belong on pay-per-view, or the matches aren't compelling. So that block of matches really slowed down Double or Nothing for me. The pay-per-view before that, I thought Dynasty, if I'm not mistaken, Dynasty, with the exception of that Jericho match, I thought Dynasty was a pretty decent pay-per-view. I thought that like it moved well. I remember that it did not feel like, oh, this is too long. And I didn't even see a lot of discussion about that. I know this one went longer than 4 hours because of the Anarchy in the Arena, but I loved Anarchy in the Arena. I thought that was a lot of fun. I thought it was a great way to end the show. So I don't think the length is the issue. It's what you do with that. It's the match order, it's the match pace, it's what they do in the match, it's the storyline build. If you put a bunch of matches on a 4-hour card that all deserve to be there, that are all a major story point, either the end of a story or a major story beat, and they all deserve to be there, and the matches all tell really compelling stories, nobody's going to complain about match length, about card length, about pay-per-view length. DJ Luke D, if DIY would win the tag titles on SmackDown, would it make it look like the lesser tag team, since Theory and Waller never really defended it and DIY couldn't get the job done on Raw? I'm going to say no. I don't think it would make DIY seem lesser, only because Waller and Theory come off as a stronger tag team than Miz and R-Truth, who are basically a comedy act that I don't even remember. I think that they defended against like Judgment Day, or was a multi-man. I forget what it was. But like they seemingly don't really defend those titles very often. I'm not saying that Waller and Theory do necessarily. They just come off as sort of a stronger act. I know there are elements of comedy, of like heel comedy stuff there, but they do come off like a pretty strong group compared to the Miz and R-Truth, who were doing like ice cream spots, which I thought was pretty funny on Raw, but still, they don't come off like the strongest act in the world. So I think DIY beating Waller in Theory, which remains to be seen if that's going to be the case, would be fine as compared to them not getting the job done on Raw. Ryan Connor says, do you think having the World Heavyweight title hot potato the rest of the year is a good idea? Having Drew, Priest, Punk, Jay, and Gunther all have short reigns between now and WrestleMania 41 could blah, blah, blah. I don't know about hot potato necessarily, but I do think that to a degree it's going to be. I think this is what we're looking at. Drew's going to win it at Clash. I don't see main event Jey Uso winning it, but I think Drew is going to win it at Clash. It wouldn't shock me to see Gunther win in Berlin, And then he'll probably hold that until WrestleMania. At which point, I don't know, maybe they'll do Drew. I'm sorry, maybe they'll do Jay. Maybe they'll do Priest. I think at SummerSlam, we might get some sort of fatal four-way, perhaps. I don't know. I do think that Drew and Gunther, and then maybe at WrestleMania, if Punk is healthy, it'll be Punk's time. You also have Money in the Bank out there. If Punk is ready for Money in the Bank, he could win Money in the Bank and cash in on Drew. I think that's a possibility as well. And then he'll be the real world champion of WWE, and maybe he'll spray paint that title. So yeah, I think that I don't know about all those names, but I think that a couple of them, and compared to like the Cody Rhodes situation, yeah, it kind of feels a bit more Attitude Era-ish, and I think they should lean into that. Absolutely, I think they should. Sophie Dophie says, do you think we'll see a Steve Austin return to the ring and TV? I don't think he's going to come back. I think that he's probably charging too much money. And he's also the kind of guy who doesn't really want to like fuck with his legacy too much. That's why he didn't want to call that last thing he did at WrestleMania a real match. So I think we've seen the last of him in the ring. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like even Saudi Arabia money is not going to get the job done. Storming Lion Designs says, do you think Ethan Page will be more successful in WWE than he was in AEW or Impact? I think he has a much better shot at success in WWE than he did in AEW. It seemed pretty obvious from the get-go that AEW didn't really have a good place for him. I thought the tag team of Scorpio Sky was pretty great, but then you throw in Dan Lambert, and I thought that it just sort of fell apart. I even think that Dan Lambert was misused because I had seen Dan Lambert be pretty entertaining in Impact. And I think that Impact used Ethan Page pretty well, actually. So, no, I think that WWE probably sees him as a guy who's got a lot to offer. And I think because of that, he'll be just fine in WWE. I'd be really surprised if he was a guy who fell by the side in the WWE, because they seem to, with a few exceptions, use everybody pretty well over there at this point. Money 13 says, what's your favorite Alice in Chains song/album? Favorite album is probably Dirt. Can't go wrong with that. I'll be honest with you. I pretty much love everything on there. Although lately I've been listening to Mad Season, which I know isn't Alice in Chains, but Lane Staley, and I forget if Jerry Cantrell's in that. But I've been listening to Mad Season lately to get my Lane Staley fix. That's a really amazing album. Clever usernames here as our last question of the day says, are there any creative projects you would eventually want to dabble in or pursue outside of wrestling? So for the past couple of years, I've been interested in starting to do like comic books again, but I just don't have the time. Like, I'd love to try that, and maybe, I don't know, when I retire from all this YouTube business, I'll give that a shot. But yeah, that's something I've always considered doing. But other than that, no, I don't know. I sort of like what I do, and it takes up all my time, so yeah, I want to get a little bit more ambitious with these WrestleJuice videos, though. I got a couple video projects in mind that I might consider. And then, of course, also I have art projects like spray painting AEW titles and making everybody mad. I want to bring that up really quick. Apologies if I offended anybody in that last video by spray painting the AEW title here. Here's the thing. I wanted to put something on the set here that I thought was representative of things that I like. And I really liked when CM Punk spray painted the AEW title and called himself the real world's champion. I thought it was a cool story that they were going to pursue, and they ended up not pursuing it. And I'm kind of curious, man, where was I going to go? And so I came up with the idea. I was like, hey, I'm talking about AEW in this video. Why don't I go ahead and do that just for fun? And then I'll be able to add it on the set. It's like a custom title now. And I think it looks pretty cool. And I think it's reminiscent of something I really enjoyed, but some of you took issue with it. And for that, I don't know what to tell you. It's just a wrestling show. Relax. And yeah, there you go. Anyways, it's not really an apology, to be honest with you. That's going to do it for the show, because I'm not sorry I did it. Till next time, we'll see you guys around. Hit that thumbs up. Or now, if you didn't like that non-apology, you can give it a thumbs down. It's all good. I won't hold it against you.